You know, when you hear about a political party in the news every day, you have to wonder, what do they really stand for? Like, if you could just strip away all the campaign noise and the daily back and forth, what are the core ideas that are actually driving everything? Well, that's what we're going to figure out. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a little trip back in time. We're actually digging into the official Democratic Party platforms from the presidential elections between 2000 and 2012. The whole idea here is to see if we can find the big foundational principles that connected all their policies during that really pivotal period. And we've got a pretty clear roadmap for this. First, we're going to identify the big picture themes. Then, we'll zoom in on three powerful principles that just kept popping up: building an economy for everyone, fighting for a just and equal society, and having a government that works for the people. And then at the end, we'll tie it all together to see the whole vision.
Let's be honest, a party platform can sometimes feel like this huge, endless list of policies, right? But if you kind of look closer and read between the lines, you start to see a few really powerful ideas that connect everything.
And yeah, that is exactly what we found here. Looking at the Democratic platforms from 2000 to 2012, it really boils down to three central pillars that kept shaping their vision for the country. So let's kick things off with the one that hits home for all of us: the economy. All right, so pillar number one is the economy. But it's not just about, the stock market or GDP. The platforms make it super clear that it's all about who that growth is for. The idea that came up again and again was building an economy from the middle out, one that works for everybody. I mean, this quote from the 2012 platform pretty much says it all, doesn't it? And look, this wasn't some new catchphrase they just came up with. It was the endpoint of an idea that had been building for more than a decade. So, how'd they plan to do it? Okay, tax policy is a perfect example of this. Seriously, in every single platform from 2012, the message on taxes was exactly the same. They drew a really clear line. Tax cuts for working and middle-class families? Yes. For millionaires? Nope. And this focus on working folks went way beyond just taxes. You see it everywhere. They repeatedly talked about protecting unions, changing the tax code to keep jobs in America, and giving tax credits to small businesses. Oh, and they also wanted to end what they called corporate welfare and, of course, raise the minimum wage. The big takeaway here is pretty simple. The goal was an economy built on the strength of its workers and small businesses, not just a handful of huge companies. Okay, so that's the economy. Now, building on that whole idea of fairness, we get to the second big principle: creating a just and equal society. And this is all about making sure every single citizen, no matter who they are or where they come from, gets a fair shake under the law. You can really see this principle in action if you look at how their stance on same-sex marriage evolved. It's fascinating. Back in 2004, the platform was all about letting states decide, just opposing a federal ban. Fast forward 8 years to 2012, and wow, it's a complete shift to full-throated support for equal treatment nationwide. It just goes to show how the core idea of equality could be applied differently as time went on. And you really can't talk about civil rights during this time without talking about one specific legal case: Roe v. Wade. I mean, this 1973 Supreme Court decision was absolutely central to the entire political conversation for all of these years. And when it came to Roe, the party's position was rock solid. Every single platform used that exact phrase: strong and unequivocal support. But this commitment to equality didn't stop there. It showed up everywhere. They supported affirmative action, wanted to pass new hate crime laws, aimed to fix racial disparities in drug sentencing, and fought against voter ID laws that they felt would keep people from voting. All right, that brings us to our third and final principle. And this one is all about the role of government itself. Throughout these platforms, you see this consistent idea of government as a positive force, something that provides a strong social safety net and makes sure everyone has a real shot at succeeding. Now, this isn't about having a big government just for the sake of it. The core idea is that government has a special job to do: protect its citizens and invest in the country's future. And you can really see this belief pop up in three big areas: healthcare, retirement, and education. Let's take healthcare, for example. The plan was pretty consistent and had three basic steps. Step 1, expand coverage so more people can get affordable insurance. Step 2, figure out how to cut costs in the system. And Step 3, protect and preserve Medicare. And they were very clear about opposing any moves to privatize it. And this whole idea of protect and invest just keeps showing up. On Social Security, The message was crystal clear. No privatization, no raising the retirement age. On education, they called themselves the Party of Public Education and wanted to double Pell Grants and make college tuition tax deductible. And on the environment, they just flat out rejected the idea that you have to choose between a good economy and a clean planet. Okay, so we've broken down these three big pillars. Now, let's zoom out a bit and see how they all fit together to create one big picture for the country at the time. When you put it all on the table, it really snaps into focus, doesn't it? You've got an economy for all, which you see so clearly in their tax plan. Then you have a just and equal society with their solid support for civil rights, like Roe v. Wade as a prime example. And finally, government for the people, which is all about protecting things like Social Security and Medicare. See, these weren't just a random collection of ideas. They all came from the same basic philosophy.
So there you have it, a snapshot of the Democratic Party's core ideas from not all that long ago. It's a really interesting baseline when you think about where politics are today. Which brings us to one last question for you to think about. Which of these principles and policies still feel like they're at the very center of the conversation? And which ones now seem like they belong to a totally different era?